guys, Goose here, and in this video we're going to be looking at the guitars of Angus Young. Angus Young was born on the 31st of March in 1955. He was born in Glasgow, Scotland. In June 1963 he left Scotland by aeroplane to Australia. There they moved to a semi-detached house in the Sydney suburb of Burwood. He first started to play the banjo, restrung with 6 strings. The first guitar that Angus played was a cheap acoustic model purchased second-hand by his mother. When Angus finally did talk his mother into getting him a cheap acoustic guitar, to his dismay, he was told he'd have to share it with his brother Malcolm. Angus says, "When we were kids we fought like cats and dogs, and then when we started playing guitar it was even worse. He wouldn't let me in his bedroom because he'd say Angus has got a photographic memory. Play a lick and he steals it. Whenever I'd walk in the room he'd say, 'Get out.'" Attending the Sydney Ashfield Boys High School with Malcolm, Angus spent most of his time skipping school, although his favourite subject was art, which was the only class where he could do what he wanted. Angus's early influences were Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Freddie King and Muddy Waters. Having progressed from his restrung banjo to a wonky acoustic, Angus craved his first electric guitar. When Malcolm had been gifted a Gretsch guitar by Harry Vanda, Malcolm passed down a Hofner to Angus. The Hofner guitar is probably this one pictured here, which was used by Angus's older brother George. George Young played in the Easy Beats in the late 60s. Here you can see Angus's older brother George Young from the Easy Beats with his Hofner Club 60. The Easy Beats had one major hit outside Australia, Friday on My Mind, released in 1966. It quickly became Angus's favourite instrument. And this guitar here is Angus's first Gibson Sg. Angus says of this guitar, "I think it was a 69 or a 70, although I had someone else tell me it might be a 71 or 72, so I really don't know for sure. But I still have it, I use it in the studio." He loved the look of Gibson Sg, which had been introduced in the early 1960s. Sg stood for solid guitar, and given the way that Angus would wield his axe over the coming years, it proved perfect for him. It was also relatively light. Angus says of Sgs, "I've always found with Sgs that if you are a short guy, you can get your hands around them," he explained. It quickly became Angus's favourite instrument. Even the relatively dodgy dark brown Gibson that Angus bought second-hand from a music store in Burwood, probably a 1967 model, had the sound and feel he was after. Okay, let's talk about what year this guitar was possibly made in. Because of this guitar's walnut brownish colour as opposed to dark cherry, this would date the guitar's age to 1969 or 1971. So walnut was not available in 1968. Also, the guitar's cutaways have a shallow carve, which was a feature introduced in those later years. Also, to take note, Angus had a Made in USA stamp on the back of the headstock and also a volute. The Made in USA stamp was introduced in late 1970. He bought this guitar in 1971 when he was 16 years old. He bought it from a music store close to his family home in Sydney. He used this guitar extensively during the 1975 AC/DC High Voltage Australian tour. And as you can see in this photo, it seems that Angus has removed the chrome pickup covers, both of which were present in photos taken in 1974. He used this guitar from 1970 when he bought it until 1978. And in fact he did replace the original pickups after 1 year of use with another set of Gibson humbuckers. It had a really thin neck, almost like a custom neck. I like the Sgs because they were light. I tried Fenders, but they were too heavy and they just didn't have the balls. And I didn't want to put on them Damasio's because then everyone sounds the same. It's like you're listening to the guy down the street, and I like the hard sound of Gibson. Angus modified his Sg around July 1976. The input jack was repositioned on the side of the body. Initially it looked like it was held together with pieces of duct tape. By August 1976, the top jack was completely removed and neatly taped over, and an actual jack plate was installed on the bottom. Also in this photo you'll notice that the bridge pickup is now covered or a different pickup entirely. In 1977 you can see Angus's walnut Sg with the same pickup setup. Also notice how the neck pickup is held in place with black tape. These modifications could have been the result of the Schaefer Vega diversity system, which Angus decided to use around 1977, and perhaps the input jack on the guitar was moved because of this reason. The back of Angus's guitar had been routed out so he could fit the transmitter unit inside of it, and this explains why you can see some photos with the back of the guitar covered in black tape. The Schaefer Vega wireless system has a major impact on Angus's guitar sound. And here you can see an original Schaefer Vega diversity system unit. The black receiver with a cream coloured TX10 transmitter. This system actually has a volume boost control which further overdrives the sound, and Angus actually utilised this feature to his advantage. And here we can see Angus's first SG being used on the Power Rage tour in 1978. In this photo you can see that the original Lyle Maestro has been replaced by what appears to be a Leo Khan Badass wraparound bridge. And to cover up the marks from the original bridge, Angus has used some duct tape. And as there is no cable going into the guitar, it's likely that Angus had the wireless transmitter built into the guitar, so there was no need for one. It seems that Angus actually retired his guitar in 1979. In 1978, Angus went to a music store on 48th Street in New York, and in this store he bought a few Gibson SGs. One of these guitars that stood out was an early 1970s Sg Standard, which was actually marked a factory second. Angus says of this guitar, "I remember when I first went to America, I bought some on that street in New York, 48th Street. There used to be a little shop on the corner there where I bought a couple of SGs. And one of them was great. The guy who sold it to me told me there was a 2 on the back of it, and apparently that's what they put on the rejects. So I said, yep, that's me. I used that guitar on Highway to Hell." You can see here in this photo from 1979 that Angus is playing his factory second SG. Also note that the pickup covers have been removed. For live performances, the guitar was used alongside at least 2 other SGs. One was a black with the large batwing white pickguard, while the other was a 1960s red SG, which came with this smaller pickguard. Angus said that this guitar also featured the same thin neck featured on his original guitar. The number 2 actually just means that there is a minor flaw on the guitar, and as a result it's sold as a slightly cheaper price. This guitar had a cherry red finish with a mahogany back and neck. It also featured a Maestro tremolo bridge. The tuners were swapped out for metal ones. Like before, you would see any cavities plugged up with tape to protect it from sweat. So on Angus's trip to America, when he visited 48th Street in New York, along with this guitar, Angus also acquired a 1970s Gibson Sg custom guitar from the shop in New York, and this would have been around 1978. Angus was first seen using this guitar in 1979. Originally this was a walnut Gibson SG with a tremolo bridge that looked very similar to his first guitar, except this guitar had 3 pickups. Angus decided to remove the middle pickup, and another modification was to paint the guitar black. He also removed the tremolo tailpiece. This guitar features a black finish with gold hardware, which wasn't standard for the SG series. The regular production Gibson SG custom models also featured 3 humbucking pickups at the time, but this guitar had only 2, which would technically make it a customized Gibson SG custom. Just like the Highway to Hell SG, this also had a large block cut out of the body for the wireless pack to fit in, which, similar to the others, would later be filled in and refinished. This guitar can be best seen used on the Let There Be Rock movie. Angus had a block of wood routed out of the back of the guitar so he could put the wireless battery pack directly into his guitar and away from screaming fans' reach. This was a modification made to many of his guitars over the years. Later, the battery pack was removed to the back of the guitar strap and the block in the guitar was filled in. The entire guitar was repainted black and outfitted with a white pickguard. Angus used this as his primary guitar for the Back in Black tour and album, and it's one of Angus's most iconic guitars. If we look at the For Those About to Rock 12-inch vinyl LP album cover on the inside, which was released in 1981, we can see Angus playing a walnut Custom SG. And as you can see here, it still has the 3 pickups. The English guitar luthier John Diggins from JD Custom Guitars has stated on his website that AC/DC turned up with one of Angus's Gibson SGs. It had a broken truss rod. Diggins says, "I removed the fretboard so I could see what was going on, and I discovered that the fixed end of the truss rod had been damaged by excessive use of a brazing torch. I rebuilt the inside of the neck with a new timber, mahogany, and the final repair was as good as new. The guitar was a walnut colour with aged cream double-sided pickguard." So the repair that John Diggins is talking about could well have been this custom walnut SG as it would have originally looked like. You can see this guitar recently featured on Premier Guitar's Rig Rundown, and it's one of Angus's favourite guitars. This next guitar is a 1960s Gibson SG. Angus used this guitar from 1981. You can also see this guitar being used on their Flick the Switch tour. Unlike his previous SG Standards, he kept the original tuners on. He did not route out the back of the body to store his wireless pack. One modification that he did do on this guitar was install a Seymour Duncan SH-PH1 pickup, which Angus grew fond of around this time. This pickup would later be used as the base model for his signature series. So, for most of the 1980s, Angus played either his 1970s factory second SG or one of his 1960s original Gibson SGs. This next guitar is a JD SG, and this guitar was made in 1981 by guitar luthier John Diggins. It was given to Angus just before the Monsters of Rock concert in Donington. Diggins says that Angus used this guitar for the whole concert at Donington. The JD Custom SG featured a mahogany body and neck, lightning flash inlays, white binding on the neck and headstock, gold-plated hardware, and 2 JD Hooligan pickups. It has a 3-piece mahogany and maple neck, a 1-piece mahogany body, a bone nut, and a 5-ply black pickguard. Diggins also included a built-in wireless battery pack on the back of the guitar, but since Angus sweated so much on stage, the battery pack would often give him a shock, and opted to have strap-mounted battery packs in the future. John Diggins built this guitar especially for Angus in secret. He gave this to Angus right before AC/DC took to the stage in 1981 for the Monsters of Rock Donington Festival. Angus loved the guitar so much that he took it right out on stage and played the entire show on it. Angus would use this guitar throughout the 80s. This next guitar here turned up around 1983, and you could see Angus using this until 1985. This could well be the factory second SG that Angus had previously acquired. The difference is this guitar now has a zebra pickup in the neck and also a John Diggins Hooligan pickup in the bridge. So this guitar no doubt was worked on by John Diggins. From 1985 to 1986 we can see another Gibson SG which was modified by John Diggins, and on this SG you can see the lightning rods on the fretboard. This would have been modified sometime in the 1980s. You can see this guitar again in the year 2000 on the Stuff Upper Lip tour. It was also used on the Black Ice tour around 2010. This next guitar is a black Gibson SG model. As you can see on the truss rod cover, it has Les Paul, meaning that it is likely to be early to mid 1960s. If it is indeed an early to mid 1960s SG Standard, this would mean it must be a refinished guitar, as black wasn't an option on those early SG guitars. This guitar also featured Grover tuners instead of the original Clousons. This was Angus's main guitar during the Razor's Edge tour in 1990 and the Ballbreaker tour in 1995. It was also most notably used on August 17, 1991 for the Live at Donington Monsters of Rock gig. I want to point you out to an amazing website called groundguitar.com, and there the website owner Dan has said the following about this guitar. Based on the location of the crown inlay on the headstock, this is likely an earlier model. On models made after late 1966, the crown was moved down, so Angus's guitar had to have been a 1966 or 1965 model, although it is possible that this change happened in early 1967. So it's possible that some necks were left over in the Gibson factory from 1966 and were assembled on the guitars made in 1967. Although Angus's guitar tech Trace Foster confirmed that it is a 1967 model. As you can see, this guitar's got some wear on it, so this could in fact be one of Angus's early SGs which was refinished. and could well indeed be the guitar that he used in the 1990s. And this guitar could be seen live on the Stiff Upper Lip tour in 2000 and also on the Black Ice tour from 2008 until 2010, and also on the Rock or Bust 2016 tours. And in this photo we can see Angus with an early 1980s Gibson Sg Standard. The 1980 Gibson Sg Standard had a walnut finish. It featured a mahogany body and a rosewood neck with block markers. It also featured an earlier 60s style pickguard. It came with two chrome plated Gibson Super Humbucking pickups. The neck was a 3-piece solid mahogany construction. The fingerboard nut width was 1 11/16. Angus used this guitar in the Back in Black tour in 1981. Also note that the jack socket was on the side rather than on the body with the control knobs. After 30 years of playing a Gibson SG, Gibson finally decided to make the Angus Young signature guitar. It was actually modelled after Angus's first 1970s SG. It has a 12-inch radius fretboard, a mahogany body and neck, and the same smaller neck profile that Angus loves so much. He installed a Seymour Duncan SHPH1 in the bridge, and in the neck he used a 57 Classic humbucker. And also you can see the JD influence on this guitar with the lightning bolt fret inlays. There's also a Devil Schoolboy inlay in the headstock and Angus's signature on the truss rod. The Devil Schoolboy didn't come on every single Gibson SG, so it became somewhat of a collector's item. So most have the standard Gibson on the headstock. You can see Angus play this guitar around 2003. It seems that Angus doesn't always seem to use these guitars live, and he still prefers to use his earlier SGs. Another recent acquisition was in 2015. Paul McCartney's guitarist Brian Ray gave Angus his very own signature SG model. He had one specially made with Angus's specs and presented it to Angus personally. This custom version of the Brian Ray signature is equipped with Seymour Duncan pickups. It has a black translucent finish and it usually comes with a Bigsby, but this guitar that Angus uses has just got a stop tailpiece. It has a white pickguard and a white truss rod cover. Thanks guys so much for watching this video. We have a Patreon if you want to support this channel, and there's going to be some lessons and some other stuff on there, and also we're going to be bringing some new videos very soon to you. So thanks a lot, God bless, take care.